Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Homes at Homes. Hey, everyone, I got to introduce you to someone. This is Sammy. Everyone say hi to Sammy. This is my great friend, Sammy. I don't know if you can tell, but Sammy's a fish. He's a really neat fish called, do you know what kind of fish he is called? I bet Sammy would be really proud of you if you knew what he was. Shout it out at home if you know what kind of fish this is. I can hear you from across the way there. I think you're saying it's a lake sturgeon. If you said lake sturgeon, you're right, and that's what we're going to talk all about today. I'm going to let Sammy sit down here for a second and introduce you to our Homes at Home series, kicking off again on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you tuned in 2 weeks ago, you know that this series is all about the Great Lakes and all the amazing creatures and critters and ecologies that live and work around the Great Lakes. And so we always start out our Homes at Home series with our acronym HOMES, H-O-M-E-S. Hopefully you can spell Homes. And each one of those letters stand for one of the Great Lakes. So we're going to review really quick all 5 Great Lakes. And when I point to the first one, I want you to shout it out at home. So this is the lake that starts with an H. Shout it out at home. Hope you said Huron. Then you'd be right. The old lake. Ontario. Now let's go over to this lake with the M. It's our namesake lake. It's Lake Michigan. Yes. And we're getting now over to the E. We're at H-O-M-E. This shallow lake here that's lovely. It's Lake Erie. And up to the top, that's the last one. It's the coldest lake. It's the biggest lake. It's the baddest lake. It's the, I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty awesome. It's Lake Superior. So that's our 5 Great Lakes. And as you recall, maybe if you tuned in before, we're going to share some really neat things about the Great Lakes and challenge you at the end of this to do something at home to engage with learning about or stewarding the Great Lakes. So I'm going to bring back my friend here. And I don't know if you know anything about Lake Sturgeon, but Sammy's told me that he calls himself a dinosaur of the Great Lakes. A dinosaur? Woo. I mean, you are pretty neat looking. I'm almost call you a dinosaur. Why do people call you a dinosaur of the Great Lakes, Sammy? Oh, Sammy says that there's fossils that have been found that are 100 million years old, and they look really similar to the sturgeon we have today. Sturgeon have been around for a long time, and unlike most of our other fish whose ancestors look pretty different and they've changed and evolved, sturgeon have stayed really the same. You know, Sammy, I don't think I know as much as I would like to know about sturgeon. Would you help me and all the folks out there listening and watching today learn a little bit more about lake sturgeon? Oh, that's an enthusiastic sturgeon, yes. When you see the whole thing bob up and down, you know they're all for it. So Sammy's going to help us walk through some really cool facts today about lake sturgeon, the dinosaur of the Great Lakes. So Sammy says that he's got a neat little presentation to start out for you here and share some of these cool things about the Great Lakes. All right. Whoa, Sammy, what's this? Oh, well, this looks like a cycle, a circle. Oh, Sammy says that this is actually a life cycle of a lake sturgeon. So, Sammy, up at the top there, it's an egg. Did you start out as an egg? Oh, Sammy started out as a tiny little egg. It says 1 inch in the diameter. I wonder what egg. Oh, look at that. Sammy's got some photos of eggs. Wait, that just looks like rocks. Sammy, are you pulling my chain? You just put a picture of rocks up for everyone. What's that? There's eggs in there? See if you can see the eggs at home. Point to the eggs in that picture, because I just see rocks. You point. Oh, Sammy says there's some eggs. Show the next. Okay. No. Oh, there. Oh, I see. It's those little round things. Man, they look just like rocks. That's pretty well camouflaged. Well, that's pretty neat. Those are the eggs, and they're only 3 millimeters. You know how small that is? That's like this small. It's like that big. You started out that. Wow, that's crazy, Sammy. I can't believe how small you started out there. Well, that's pretty incredible. What's the next life stage? Larva. Larva. I thought larva was like a grub or like a little bug or something, isn't it? Nope. Oh, that's it right there. Whoa, Sammy. Look at those larval stages there. That's pretty crazy. That was you once? You looked like a little tiny eel or something. Only a couple inches long. That's it. Man, Sammy, you sure do know how to grow. All right. So what comes next, Sammy? What's after that larval stage? Oh, the young of year. Oh, back when you're a wee little lad, just 1 year old, eh? So that's the next stage, the young of year stage. It says 5 to 16 inches. What's that, Sammy? Oh, Sammy says our friend Megan, who maybe some of you have seen before, has a video from one of the schools she's worked with that does sturgeon in the classroom. Let's take a look at this young of the year sturgeon. This is a beautiful creature. Hey, you know what? At home, I want you to try and notice some features about this 1-year-old sturgeon. So as I play the video, I want you to notice some features, some interesting things, and tell the person next to you some of the interesting things you notice about this sturgeon. Like, I'll just give you one example. I noticed that it has nostrils in front of its eyes. So maybe try to notice some of the other interesting things about sturgeon while this plays. Whoa, that was pretty neat there, Sammy. What were some interesting features about that sturgeon? Oh, Sammy says that he thought somebody said that they have black blotchy splotches all over them. That's kind of interesting, a little different. I wonder why they have black blotchy splotches. Maybe it has to do with where they live. Oh, Sammy says, yeah, of course it does. So the black blotchy splotches help them blend in. Sammy says that young little sturgeon, like eggs or juvenile or larva, can get eaten by bigger fish or birds or other predators, and they could be prey. Prey is something that gets eaten. And so Sammy says that those black splotches really help them blend in. What were some other interesting things? You know what I noticed? I noticed a really interesting mouth on you creatures there. Look at it, it's down there at the very bottom. It's not up here at the front. I wonder why they have mouths like that. You know, I think I learned about this for my Michigan Sea Grant Pintails and Scales poster the other day. There's a bunch of different kinds of mouths on this poster here, and it shows some of those. Now this mouth on this fish here, this points upwards. I think this might be a herring or something, and it points upwards. And that's because those fish grab their food right off the top of the water. These terminal fish here, like this king salmon, their mouths point forward, and that's because they grab food that's right in front of them that they swim out and catch like other fish. But the subterminal mouth on the bottom is what Sammy has and other sturgeon. So I guess that means that they get their food from the bottom of the water. Wow, that's really interesting. So sturgeon eat all the bugs and grubs and all the little things off the bottom of the lake. They really help clean it up out there. That's pretty cool. All right, Sammy. Those are some really neat facts about young year sturgeon. Oh, the next phase is you? Let's take a look at the next phase then. Sammy says he's in the next phase right now. He is currently a juvenile. Now don't take that as an offense or anything, Sammy. He's a juvenile sturgeon, which can be anywhere from 2 to 26 years old. Boy, 26-year-old seems kind of old to be juvenile, but I guess there's some juvenile 26-year-olds out there. Anyway, let's take a look at a brother. This is your brother's Spencer. Oh, Sammy, it's Spencer. Yeah. So Spencer is one of Sammy's brothers at Lake Superior State University at their Center for Freshwater Research and Education. And they sent us this video of Spencer. He's going to say hi. And hey, again, on this video, I want you to look for things that are interesting or unique about a sturgeon, or maybe things that are different from the juvenile stage. That's pretty cool there, Spencer. Wow, Sammy, you got a neat brother. That's some interesting features. Let's see that one more time. Wow. Oh, again? Oh, no. All right, Spencer's trying to hog all the attention. So that was a pretty interesting feature there of some of the juvenile parts of the sturgeon. So, Sammy, one thing I noticed is is right down there. Did you guys notice that at home? What are these things going on? Are they like whiskers? Do you just need a shave, Sammy? No. Oh, he says no. These are really useful. What are they? Oh, they're barbels. Whoa. You guys know what barbels are? Barbels are really neat little sensory organs that some fish have, like Sammy. They can actually detect electricity and all sorts of other signals from bugs and critters that are underneath the mud and muck. This is like a sixth sense. Whoa. It's not sight. It's not sound. It's electric barbel sensors. That's incredible. Wow, Sammy. You have some really neat features. What other features did you notice at home? You know, there's one thing I noticed. You've got some really awesome like spikes going on here. Look at these spikes. What are those? Oh, Sammy says they're called scoots. Scoots. That's a funny word, scoots. Anyway, the scoots, Sammy says, are actually really hardened bony plates. They're not like normal fish scales. This is one of those dinosaur era things that almost no fish have anymore, but the sturgeon still have. And when they're juveniles, they're very sharp and they help prevent predators from wanting to take a bite out of them. And when they're older, they're hardened so much that really almost nothing can get through those scoots. They're really hard scoots there, Sammy. All right. Well, that's some pretty amazing features about lake sturgeon. Now, Sammy, you're not an adult yet. How big do lake sturgeon get? Whoa, 6 feet. Sammy said that they get about 6 feet long and that some have actually been recorded as 7 or 8 or guesses of even 9 foot long sturgeon. That's incredible. And they can weigh almost up to 300 pounds. 6 feet is that's like taller than me. That's taller than, probably most of the people in your family. Unless you got the tall people in your family. 6 feet is really big. And 300 pounds, whew, that's hefty. Wow, that's totally crazy. And an adult sturgeon can lay eggs. Sammy says that adult sturgeon can lay up to 40% of their weight in eggs. That means one sturgeon that weighs, say, 100 pounds could lay 40 pounds of eggs. Holy moly, that's a lot of eggs there, Sammy. So sturgeon are really incredible and really neat. And they've been around the Great Lakes for a long, long time. All 5 of the Great Lakes had so many sturgeon that in some places people say it was like you could walk across their backs. When they were spawning in the rivers, laying their eggs, they would coat from one side of the river to the other. Native Americans had a strong relationship with the sturgeon, which they called name, and that sturgeon was really important to them for a lot of different reasons. Unfortunately, when European settlers came around, they didn't see the value in sturgeon. They thought they were just a pain. They got in their fishing nets. They didn't like them. And so most of them just threw them on shore and they harvested a lot and just considered it a trash fish. I can't believe somebody would call you trash, Sammy. It's okay. Those fish were almost gone extinct after a long time to be harvested for that and eventually for their caviar, for their tons of eggs. But thankfully, there's been some really awesome things happening in the Great Lakes in the last few decades to help bring the sturgeon back. So I'm just going to share a few of those and then give you your challenge for today. So things that people have done to actually bring the sturgeon back. Both the tribes and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and some other agencies have actually started raising sturgeon in hatcheries. That picture up at the top there, well, that actually is a picture that shows a sturgeon tank. They actually take the eggs and the juvenile. Now, why do they take the eggs out? Oh, that's right. Eggs can get eaten by predators. So they take the eggs and they put them into tanks inside where they're nice and safe and raise those fish up to a little bigger so they got a fighting chance once they get put back out into the water. And then they release them. They also track all those sturgeon with pick tags and other types of tags where they can actually identify that it was raised somewhere in a particular hatchery. And ones that are even raised in hatcheries, they tag. How fun would that be to have a job going out and tagging sturgeon? High five. All right, the last one is that there's lots of reef restoration. So Michigan Sea Grant's been involved with some great restoration projects in the Detroit River where they literally just dump a whole bunch of rocks in the river. That's pretty crazy. Why would you dump rocks in the river? Oh yeah, that's right, those eggs were on rocks. Sturgeon need rocks to lay their eggs on. And many of the rocks in the river, what we call reefs, have been taken out for shipping channels. So now we're putting those back. That's pretty awesome. So you at home today have a challenge. There's a few different things that every average day citizens, even if you're not a scientist, you don't work for the DNR or the Sioux Tribe or one of the agencies that help bring back sturgeon, you can actually do things like report a sighting. If you ever accidentally catch a sturgeon, you need to let it go right away, but then tell the DNR about it. Michigan DNR has a website we'll share with you, and our links at the end, for reporting sturgeon sightings. Maybe you see one in a river. It's really important because we don't know where they all are. There was not until 2018 we found that there was actually sturgeon in the St. Mary's River where I am. It was incredible. Some students at LSSU found some of those larvals working with one of the federal agencies. Another thing you can do besides report your sightings is support Sturgeon for Tomorrow or Sturgeon in the Classroom, some great programs. We'll share links. And the last thing is your challenge for today. Your challenge for today is to help inform others. A lot of people just don't know how awesome sturgeon are or why we want to protect them or that we're trying to bring the threatened sturgeon back. So your challenge today is to make a poster or a drawing of a sturgeon like this one. Okay, maybe not as good as this one. I made this one. It's pretty awesome. Okay, I didn't make this one, actually. Some way more talented people than me made this. It's up on our Michigan Sea Grant website. You can download that, and you can use this to share with a friend or family, or you can make your own poster or sturgeon coloring, and then once you've made it, your challenge is to call up on the video chat a friend or a family member and teach them a little bit about sturgeon. So that's your challenge for today. Learn a little more about sturgeon, make a poster or a drawing. We'll share a page to a coloring page, and then to share that with a friend or family using a video chat service. So that's the challenge for today. I hope you enjoyed. I know Sammy tells me, what's that? Oh, Sammy says that you guys are his favorite. He's so glad that you learned all about sturgeon today. He's so happy. He's happy as a sturgeon. Well, that's all for sharing the facts, but now we're going to spend a little bit of time doing some Q&A, maybe about 5-10 minutes, and then it'll be off to go do your challenges. And real quick reminder, if you did our first 5 challenges, or you do any 5 challenges from our Homes at Home series, which we're planning to run every Tuesday and Thursday through April, if you do 5 of those challenges, you can go to the Michigan Sea Grant Homes at Home's website and sign up to get a certificate and be added to our Great Lakes Hall of Fame scientists. So let's take it to the questions. In the Q&A, add your questions if you're on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook Live, then ask a question in the comments and we'll start taking some questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Cindy and I'm Elliot's co-worker with Michigan Sea Grant. I'm working from my home in Lansing, and I'm going to ask Elliot the questions that you've been putting into the Q&A box. Don't forget, you can put them in the Q&A box, or if you're posting on Facebook Live, put them in the comments, and we'll see how many we can get to. And Elliot, just like Brian, who's viewing, I have to say, these are the coolest fish ever. We have got just tons and tons of different questions coming in, and one that's really interesting is, Elliot, are they always on the bottom of the lake, sturgeon, or do they come up for air?
That's a good question. So the sturgeon spends most of its time at the bottom of the lake. That's where its food is, that's where it feels safest, and that's where it's going to spend most of its time. Some fish have the ability to actually gulp air and will come up if there's not enough oxygen in the air to gulp air. You know what? I don't know if sturgeon gulp air or not. That'd be a really interesting thing to maybe do a little research in. And Brian, come back to us and tell us, do sturgeon gulp air? We know some fish do, but I'm not sure about sturgeon or not. That's a great question. We'll have to find that answer for you. Or you find it for us.
Do we know how old sturgeon can get, Elliot?
That is a great question. Yes, there are a number of different studies and actual sturgeon that have been researched in the Great Lakes. But most recently, in I believe 2016, some folks over in Wisconsin doing research on sturgeon pulled up an almost 125-year-old lake sturgeon that was over 7 feet long and over 220 pounds. Oh, so they can live to be, they think, up to 150 years old. And actually, sturgeon don't even start laying eggs until they're 15 to 25 years old. So sturgeon take a really long time to grow, a really long time to reproduce, and that's what can make them vulnerable to overfishing, since it takes so long for them to grow old enough to lay eggs. But they can live for a long time once they're up there. Up to 150 years old, they think that the females can live.
Here's a question that we have from Facebook, our Facebook viewers. Elliot, are sturgeons slimy?
Are sturgeons slimy? Actually, sturgeon are not nearly as slimy as a lot of fish are. Most fish secrete a mucus layer that goes on the outside of their scales and helps protect them and make them more aerodynamic. But sturgeon have really unique scales. So I talked about the bony scutes they have, and those bony scutes are really hard and rough. But even the scales in between the scutes are a very special type of scale that's almost more like shark skin than a normal fish's skin. And so sturgeon do not feel very slimy. They're actually quite rough on the outside, which makes them, again, really hard to eat. So once a sturgeon gets past a certain size, it's pretty safe out there in the world. And they're really actually quite fun. There's a few places over in Wisconsin and soon at Lake Superior State University's new Center for Freshwater Research and Education, where there are actually sturgeon touch tanks where you can actually go and learn about sturgeon and actually touch them. So they're a pretty neat fish that's not nearly as slimy as most.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Tell me, Elliot, is there a fishing season when people can fish for sturgeon?
Yeah, so like I said before, if you accidentally fish a sturgeon, you really need to try to release it as quick as possible. Get the hook out, or if the hook's really deep, cut the line and let that sturgeon go so he can be safe, because most of the time you are not allowed to catch sturgeon. There are a very few select, at least in Michigan, really limited seasons with just a few people that are allowed to go target those sturgeon. Black Lake is one of those areas. They actually have a whole festival around it. And it's ice. I think it's an ice fishing festival, and during that festival, they only have a few people that can catch them. So the first ones that catch them get them, and then they send off air horns and tell everyone to pull up their fishing lines are done. That's it. It's over. So it's a very limited catch in only a few places. That's very special, but a lot of fun and really important to those communities. And those festivals often raise money to help keep the sturgeon going, to help support sturgeon restoration efforts. So you can check out in some of our links, the Sturgeon for Tomorrow group or the Lake St. Clair Sturgeon Festival, where you can learn a little bit more about how they raise money as part of those fishing efforts.
We have lots of questions. People want to know, they know that the sturgeon are eating along the bottom, but what exactly do they eat?
That's a great question. I don't know if you noticed this on the slides that Sammy put together for us, but there's a variety of things, and guess what? It depends on their age. So if I can go back here. So at this great, again, from the USGS there and this Tasha Tucker drawing, which, by the way, we have a link to Tasha Tucker's website where you can download some of her sturgeon drawings that you can color in yourself, and some other great Great Lakes coloring pages that you can print out and use at home. But you can see as a larval, actually as an egg, they have their food already pre-packaged for them. They don't have to eat anything once they are a larval fish, at least for the first few days, because they have what's called a sac fry, or an embryonic sac that they actually can eat the egg yolk or the egg parts that are left behind for them from their parents. So they're given their first few meals in that yolk sac there. And then once they're larvals, they actually start to eat aquatic insects. I don't know if you know this or not, but our rivers and lakes are full of bugs down at the very bottom. Things like mayfly larvae and stonefly larvae and all sorts of other things that actually you do see up on land, but they spend most of their life actually in the water down at the bottom. So there's all sorts of bugs they eat. Once they get a little older and a little bigger, they start to feed on a larger variety of things. Things like mussels or smaller fish, really anything they can find down at the bottom there. They're pretty opportunistic, and they start to feed on much bigger things. Another fun fact, I don't know if anyone asked this question, but sturgeon actually don't have teeth in their mouth. Their teeth are in their stomach. What? That's crazy. So they actually crush up their food in their stomach, where there are sharp things that are very similar to teeth inside there that helps them break things down.
That was one of our questions, Elliot. Thanks for answering that. So do we have any idea how many sturgeon are in the Great Lakes?
Ooh, that's a great question. So like I said, there's a lot of research that's going on. to to try to figure out exactly how many sturgeon are in the Great Lakes. There are some pretty good estimates out there, but we are finding new discoveries every year about where there might be sturgeon that we didn't know about. So there are some pretty good estimates out there, but we're always learning new things. Like I said, just a few years ago, up in the St. Mary's River, they had larval nets out and were able to confirm for the first time that there was successful breeding because they actually caught baby sturgeon in their larval drift nets that they had set out. So we're learning about new populations which are coming back as we enforce the rules to not fish them and as we start to clean up our waters and restore things.
Boy, people are asking so many wonderful questions. I know we won't be able to get to all of them, but thank you, Elliot, for so many of these good answers. This is an interesting one. How do sturgeon sleep?
Oh, that one's beyond me. If we've got somebody else out there that can answer, then maybe they can answer that question. I don't know. Sleeping is a really interesting thing for fish, and for any animal, really. We think of ourselves that can sleep through the night for hours at a time, but most animals have to be really careful about where and when and how they sleep, and their brains act really differently. I don't know how sturgeon sleep, and that's a good question that maybe we'll have to research for another time. I do see somebody else gave us an answer to the sturgeon gulping air question. We might need to fact check it, but it says that jumping sturgeon can gulp air to maintain a neutral buoyancy, which is pretty amazing. So that actually helps them balance themselves in the water right. And they can also communicate with other sturgeon through jumping. But yeah, the other question, I don't know. You gotta go find that out. I don't know all the answers.
We don't know all the answers, and that's really a good thing to be curious about, and that's why we can look things up and learn like a scientist. One other question here, do adults live by themselves or do they live in schools? That's one of our questions from our Facebook folks.
Yeah, so the fish can kind of disperse individually for a portion of the year, but up to several months before spawning season, the fish will begin to school. Now, not every sturgeon lays eggs every year, but those that are going to lay eggs, and many of the other ones, will get together and form huge schools of sturgeon that hang out near river mouths or in a certain staging area. They all get together and they start hanging out, having a good time, chatting it up, and they actually might stay out in those staging areas for a while before they decide to finally start heading up the river to where they will then lay their eggs. So sturgeon definitely form schools in big groups, sometimes up to a few months before they start going to lay their eggs. And that's when you can really find big groups of sturgeon. But at other times, they may be more dispersed and out there on their own or just small groups.
I think we have about time for one more question here, Elliot.
Right.
And I'm wondering, sometimes we know that there are different types of, say, salmon fish, like coho or Atlantic. Are there different types of sturgeon?
That's a great question. The answer is definitely yes. So lake sturgeon are found across the Great Lakes and in a variety of other freshwater systems up in Canada and farther west, a little bit farther south, but they're only one of over 100 different species of sturgeon that are found across the entire world. So sturgeon are found on multiple continents. Here in the U.S., we have a number of different ocean species of sturgeon. So there's the Atlantic sturgeon and the Gulf sturgeon, and these sturgeon are other also threatened and endangered species as well. Many sturgeon look pretty similar. There's one called the short-nosed sturgeon that got like a squished up face. But yes, there are actually over 100, I think it's somewhere around 150 different species of sturgeon out there across the world. So wherever you are, you might be able to get lucky and see a sturgeon.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have today, folks. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us. Remember, we'll be here again on Thursday, same time, same link. But on Thursday, what are we going to be talking about, Elliot?
Oh, that's a great question, Cindy. So Thursday, we're going to be learning about herpetology. That's the study of amphibians and reptiles. And we're going to be focused a little bit on frogs. So we're going to be talking about frogs and toads on Thursday. I hope you
Great fun. Also, if you have missed any of our previous episodes, don't forget that you can find them at the Michigan Sea Grant website, michiganseagrant.org. So tell your friends and join us for another fun episode at Homes at Home on Thursday. And we also will be we videotaped this and we will be putting it on our YouTube channel. So if you missed any part of this, you'll be able to catch it later.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot.
Bye, everyone.